This is going to sound kind of cocky. I'm not super smart. I don't know everything. I'm so disappointed that people buy into really dumb arguments and then they avoid channels that are actually like mine, which are more careful about talking about things that are true and from a trying to be unbiased and looking at things reasonably and honestly. Because if you try to push principles in your interpretation that can't hold up with consistency throughout other interpretations of the Bible, you should recognize that you're being unreasonable and that everyone who disagrees with you doesn't have necessarily nefarious reasons or bad reasoning behind it. Like, so many people have proven this to me that they're not listening to what we're saying as Adventists. They don't listen. They think they know why we're dumb or just trying to defend a cult blindly, but we actually have answers that they don't even realize are out there. They're actually legitimate. I won't go into that example, but I've recently given one. People who think they know better because they think they can dismiss Adventists because we're just a cult, when actually we're diligent Bible students and we have actual answers that are consistent with biblical interpretation and draw from the body of Christian writers and forefathers of the faith. That's much more consistent. So regarding 3 days and 3 nights, so the people out there who want to say Jesus died on Wednesday or Thursday or he rose on Saturday, yes, this would be very convenient for us Sabbath keepers, wouldn't it? But Adventists don't argue that way because we don't believe that's true. He rose on Sunday. Now, if it were true that Jesus rose on Saturday, you could make that work with the typology from the Old Testament. That's true. You could. There's ways of looking at that. But that's not what grounds the truth of this. A reasonable thing that makes the Saturday resurrection really hard to believe from the get-go is that we have eyewitnesses. The early church, there's no dissension here. He rose on the day after the Sabbath. That's what everybody said. So to think about that. Now, you can make a case for it, but don't use biblical typology that could go either way, like with the first fruits thing. Okay? Adventists believe that the Sabbath of the Passover correlated with the Sabbath of the week, and that's why it's a high Sabbath. So just proving that people didn't fully understand the nature of what kind of Sabbath it is, it was talking about the Passover typology, not the weekly Sabbath, okay, doesn't prove that therefore he didn't raise when the church said he did. That's a different thing. It's like saying NASA didn't really go to the moon because they make CGI pictures with the way they stitch the data together. That is not a good conclusion based on that reason. Maybe it's a reason to put up a red flag or to look deeper into it, but you can't just run with that. That's conspiratorial thinking. It's bad thinking. Okay? That is not a reason to run with your hypothesis. It doesn't prove anything. It at best raises a red flag that needs to be considered rationally and honestly, looking at the data and checking the sources, not taking a clip. This is called quote mining. And then jumping to a conclusion. It's like if I said, your mom's a liar. Oh, are you going to say your mom's never lied? Oh, then she's a liar. Therefore, she said she gave birth to you. I don't believe that your mother's your mom because I don't think you were born even. Maybe I'll even come to that conclusion because we both know your mom's a liar because a liar is somebody who's lied before. So knowing that your mom's a liar, I don't think she's your birth mother. It's stupid. It's bad thinking. It puts pathways in the brain that when deepened far enough, you start being an idiot. That's the point. Okay. We all have to watch for this. Okay. Me demonstrating that this is a bad form of thinking in you is not me simping for my view. It's just reality. Okay, so 3 days and 3 nights. Think about this. If you're going to be a stickler about this, the Bible also says he rose on the third day. Okay, not after the third day. It says on the third day. So this is much more in line with what the classic Christian understanding is, that he was dead for 3 consecutive different 24-hour periods. And on the third one, sometime during that 24-hour period, he rose. And what do you know? That's what the church always believed. And it's consistent with the biblical language. Now, it says 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, so it has to have 3 daylight portions and 3 night portions. Okay, you're being ridiculous. It's not how language works. But let me ask you this. Paul says Jesus died and was buried and rose the third day. Jesus was put in a tomb, bro. Jesus wasn't buried. Now, if these people that want to say 3 days and 3 nights or it's not true, and then use circumspect evidence to say that proves it, like my NASA example, you can do that, but you're not being very intelligent. If you're going to argue consistently about biblical language, then why aren't you arguing that Jesus was buried underground or buried under dirt or something? Because you're not thinking well. You're not being honest with how language is used. You're not being honest with the historical data. You're not being honest with what's rational. If you're going to insist it's 3 days and 3 nights, then you better insist that Jesus was buried in the ground. But we know that that's not true. So what do we do with that? It's a figure of speech to speak about someone having died and being put in the grave, going to the grave, which just means you died. And one way of saying that is he's died and buried. Okay. But if you want to be a bumptious, ridiculous, silly person, then you can insist it has to be 3 days and 3 nights, which just is an idiom for 3 days, which is consistent with he rose on the third day. He died and was buried, but we know he wasn't buried. He was put in a tomb. Okay, so get a life and be reasonable. God bless.